answer that question I asked through you, that it all went up in the air. People were really getting quite angry. What was that about now? I can't.
At the forum meeting?
Yeah.
I
asked through you, you asked the question.
Oh, yes, you did. I don't remember.
It really got them all going.
Yes, yeah. I'm hoping you can remember.
Oh, no, I'll try and
showing us up here.
I'll think about it.
Two old guys that can't remember what happened. I'll be calling us Biden and Trump next. So, okay, so I'm going to move this because I was the delegate there. I'm probably going to suggest that Councillor Gottlieb second it. All those in favour? Aye. Those against? Thank you.
Can I just clarify, because there are 3 sets of minutes here, have you just moved and received all of them, or just the Hauraki Golf Forum? Because the resolution...
Just the Hauraki Golf Forum.
Okay, because the resolution says receives external minutes, presuming all of the minutes.
Thank you. Let me make sure I'm on the right page. It's over here.
Through the chair. We should have put a clause 2 in there, which is to receive all the minutes. So that would be the Hauraki Golf Forum, the Civil Defence and the Regional Transport Committee.
Okay, so that's on there.
Yeah.
All right. In that case, we might take a step back, if that's all right, and include the Civil Defence, Emergency Management and the Regional Transport Committee. So I'm going to move all 3 of those. Can I get a seconder for all 3? Are you happy to second all 3 of those? And we'll put the vote again, please. Now it's for item 2, which is all 3 of those. All those in favour? Aye. Thank you. Councillor Sinclair, did you have...
Yeah, and just in terms of something that has arisen from them, in the Regional Transport Committee minutes, there's a paper on EV charging on council land, and I just wondered if you would be able to, at some point, fill in, myself as the chair of the Sustainability and Community Wellbeing Resilience Committee, what that was about. Just because it seems like it's quite a relevant thing to that committee.
Yeah, good point.
So it doesn't have to be now, just put it in your diary. We'll make a time. Thank you.
Happy to do that. And just to fill in the picture, there is some work being done by the committee specifically on policy directions for councils where those policy gaps exist, and which is most of them. So the committee identified that there were some policy gaps. How do we manage this? And it's pretty much ad hoc at the moment on a case by case. So they're looking at, do they need to have an overarching policy? It was. It's fair to say there was some pretty robust discussion around the table at that Hauraki Golf Forum. And since then, some significant developments on the management of Kalerpa and the way that that's being addressed, and very high levels of urgency around needing to deal with Kalerpa. And it is going to be topical and relevant for us in the Thames-Coromandel district. So, Councillor Graham.
Yeah, just through you, Len, has there been any updates in regard to the trial on the carpet matting that was referred to?
That was discussed at the meeting quite extensively, and it sounds promising. However, in the meantime, there's been some work done on divers using suction for Kalerpa, but there's also another trial going on with mechanical suction operations, which apparently can do more in one day than it takes divers to do in 10 days. But there's a downside to that, because potentially if you've got mechanical suction going on in there, you can potentially do some damage to other stuff going on. So I'm just hearing anecdotally that there's some promising stuff going on. The carpet stuff was working in with one of the big carpet companies, was Brimworth or something. And a lot of really good constructive cooperation. So I think what they're doing is they're saying we need to try everything at the moment, and we'll get some updates on that. Delhi, please.
I'm just wondering if this isn't the time to have, with respect, sorry, that tomorrow in the workshop time we've got some really good subcommittees, and also our Sustainability and Community Resilience Committee for some reports to come back and have a wider discussion, because Councillor Guri Percival's had a lot to do with Kalerpa as well, and it might be nice just to have 10 minutes set aside in councillor only time.
Yep, happy to do that. Yep, if you're happy to have a chat about it tomorrow. Yep. Yep. Great idea. Let's do that. Okay. So, I have put the most. All right. Kelly. Okay, item 1.7, minutes for confirmation, which is the TCDC minutes from 2nd of February. Delhi.
Here is a typo on page 35 where it says Noel Hewlett spoke regarding the future supply of to the region. So it needs to have water popped in there.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for that.
Okay, subject to that change, we've got minutes for, I'm not sure I'm in the right place. Council meeting 2nd of February, Mercury Bay Community Board 6th of December, and TCDC meeting on the 12th of December. Could I get a mover and a seconder for those, please? Councillor Revel, seconder? Nobody? Councillor Rodley, all those in favour? Aye. Those against? Carried. Thank you. Appreciate that. Okay, item 2.2, financial strategy quantified limits, and we'll invite Donna, please. Page number. 153. Page 15.3.
Yeah.
There we go. Welcome, Hayden. Welcome, Donna. Welcome, Donna. Welcome, Hayden. Your name's not on the list, I'm sorry. Okay. Donna, over to you.
Thank you, through the chair. So this, as the report says, this is what we're doing here is we're requesting council to make a decision around the quantified limits that we need to include in our financial strategy as part of the development of the long-term plan. Normally, we would have one quantified limit for a rates increase over the entire 10 years. As we all know, this long-term plan isn't a normal long-term plan. There's a lot of ups and downs. There's a lot of catching up to do, and you remember that it did present at a workshop on some options for you to consider. So this report is bringing those options back to actually look for a decision now, so that we can continue on with getting the financial strategy finalised, ready for audit, and also ready for consultation. So it is draft. It is a draft. The decision that you're making today is basically you're deciding on a draft options that we're going out to consult on.
Thank you, Donna. So the proposal is that we receive the report, we adopt the following rates affordability quantified limits, which is A, no more than 80% of total operating revenue, and then B, total rates revenue will increase by no more than LGCI plus a %, and the percentages for the years are on the next page. And as you can see, the first 3 years are based around recovery, and then dropping after that. And then total internal and external debt will be no more than 200% of total revenue. Councillors have discussed this and gone through the different options in the workshop. we now need to sign this off to go forward into the consultation document. Any discussion on this? Terry?
So moving up to the 200% of loaning will allow us to borrow another $50 million roughly, is that right? We're 150 at the moment, aren't we?
Yeah, so it'll be 200% of, it'll be double that, yeah.
Double that, right.
Yes. Can I just clarify that? So that there's two liability measures. One is 150% for external borrowing only. The 200% one is for our total borrowing. So
right.
there's two limits.
Right.
Yeah, we're not changing it from 150 to 200. There's two limits there that you're referring to.
So the total is 200.
Total borrowing, which is external and internal, is 200% of revenue.
Yeah. Thank you.
Which is what we've had in the past as well. We're not recommending any changes to that.
Thank you.
Could I just ask one question?
Sure, Councillor Morrissey,
Sorry.
and then Councillor Rodley.
As far as those borrowing limits go, guys, and with the three waters, bearing in mind the three waters and the new proposal, maybe we're going to go to CCOs and whatever we're going to do. So does the revenue that we get, I understand we're separating it our balance sheet, so that's the proposal, so the waters are going to be separate from the council's ordinary assets and bits and pieces. So is that going to be included as part of our 80%? The waters we get, the money we get from the water and our revenue?
So at the moment, yes, there's no change.
There's no change.
There's no change.
But when we
to what
become a
currently-
CCO, will it become different? Will it affect our borrowing rates then? I don't know if I'm making myself clear.
There's been no decision yet around on what it's going to look like. So
I know that. I was just sort of crystal ball gazing and wondering if that would affect us.
We don't have that information.
You don't have that information. Okay.
Yeah, there's announcements, but no detail.
Yeah, and I mean, I have indicated, I think, in the financial strategy as well that you'll see in the financial strategy when it comes to you that we are starting to get up higher towards our borrowing limit. So depending on what happens with Three Waters, the next LTP, I think we really have to look at that borrowing limit and see what it's going to look like. It's fine at the moment, but once we more understand what's happening with Three Waters and where we're going with that, then I think in time for the next LTP we'd have to look at maybe a different limit.
Yeah.
Thank you. Councillor Rebel, please, and then Councillor Rodley.
Yeah, just a couple of questions. So the 80% of total operating revenue is what we currently operate under. You're recommending we continue to operate under that. That is a pretty normal sort of limit across all local authorities, etc., and it works for us.
Yes, it does. At the moment, it's working. Yes, like I said, we're getting. At some years, I can't remember where exactly it is. We are getting up there, but we think that it's prudent to have a limit that,
yep.
We don't want to raise it. We don't think that we need to raise it at this stage. We do want to show that we've got that, we are concerned about debt and we want to keep a cap on it.
Sure. Okay. And then the second one regards the annual rate increases. And what's been recommended is that the annual rate increases be the LGCI
plus
based on that, and then on top of that is a rate increase which has been determined by what the 10-year or the draft 10-year LTP is saying. Is that right?
Yeah, in some ways it is. So basically we know that if we went out with what we have in the past, which is LGCI plus 2%, we know and we've modelled that is not achievable in this long-term plan. Yep. So your options would either be to go out with a limit that we know before we even adopt it that there's no way that we're going to be able to achieve that. That doesn't seem the right thing to do. So I think the option, we also don't want to go out with a limit that's really, really high, because that doesn't send the right message either. You know, we are concerned about rates increases, so we want to, you know, we want to have a cap that we're working to. We don't want it to be an unrealistic cap, but I think we also have to be realistic that, you know, of the situation of where not only ourselves but the rest of local government is in with affordability issues and cost increases that we're seeing.
Okay. So on page 153, you've outlined the LGCI over the next 10 years. So 3%, 2.3, that's what they, and that will change next year when they relook at their forecast or whatever it is. So, yeah.
Yeah, that changes every year.
Yep, changes every
Based
year.
on obviously what's in.
Generally, are they pretty reliable? Okay, so that changes every year. Thank you.
Yeah.
And then on page 157, with option 3, so the LGCI plus percent, is that 6.5, 6.5, et cetera, is that the additional amount?
Yes, so
Right.
that's
So-
the plus.
So in the
percentage.
24-25 year, just wanting to be clear, on the 24-25 year, the LGCI is 3%, and then our LTP says that it needs to be another 6.5%.
That's correct.
So does that mean, are you saying 9.5%?
We're saying that's what the limit that we're
That's the
proposing.
limit. And the reason it is in red is what?
The reason it's red is because with the draft LTP that we're going out with, we know that we won't be able to meet that limit.
Right, okay. But in the subsequent years, so in the 25-26 years, it's going to be 6.5 plus 2.3, and we're confident that 6.5 is 8.8. We're confident at this stage, barring no cyclones or whatever, that 8.8% increase for the 25-26 years
Yes.
is
So
a realistic aspiration, depending on what the LGCI does. And
it does, and it depends, what the LGCI does, but also what the economy does, what everything, the cost. Cost of living, all that sort of thing does. But the modelling that we have done, based on the draft numbers of the LTP, are showing that we would be within the limits.
Right. So given what we know, why are we putting 24-25 at 6.5% and turning it red when we know we actually should be putting it at 11 point whatever it is and turning it green?
That is an option. The reason I think why I did this is because we were wanting to send a message and sending a signal as well that the first year, which we have signalled, we're going to signal through our consultation document that the first year we are going to see a double-digit rates increase, and I think we also don't. I mean, we could do that, but we're also not wanting to engineer these numbers to make it fit with what our budgets are. We need to have a cap, and we need to send that signal that I think that the first year is going to be really tough.
And so just picking up on what Len was saying, by saying 6.5, 6.5, 6.5, then down to 3, hey, we missed the first year. It's just we're in recovery mode and it's expensive getting into recovery. But aspirationally, that's where we want to be. And actually, that's where we expect to be in 25-26.
That's correct. And we also want to show that we know that it's not affordable. It's certainly not sustainable over the long term, which is why we've kind of got a reducing cap going down, and made some assumptions around that, and we think that this is what we've got here in front of you is workable.
Thank you.
Thank you. We'll go Martin and then Repco, please.
And I think Councillor River was raised points that I wanted to ask about, so that's all good.
Thank you. Rebecca?
So just following on from that, not achieving it or being red in that first year, because we come out and say we know we're not going to achieve it, is it okay, or do we get a big black mark somewhere, or is audit going to be jumping up and down?
For those of you that were around in the last LTP, we had about 5 of them red that we had in there, and that was because we still had the LGCI plus 2%, but the budgets that we had were never going to, that was never going to be achievable. So I think this time we're doing this to be more realistic, also to send a message that this, that the status quo, what we've done in the past, what we've had in the past, it's not sustainable.
So I guess my question is, we're not penalised for not achieving that, for getting a red.
No.
Right. Thank you.
No.
Okay. I'll put the motion. Could I get a mover and a second, please? Councillor Revel, Councillor Grant, all those in favour? Aye. Those against? That's carried. Thank you, Donna. Thank you, Hayden. Donna, are you staying with us for the next one? Item 2.3, funding of coastal protection projects. I'll hand it over to you to give us a summary on where we've landed on and the options available to us.
Okay, so this is also around the funding of the coastal protection projects that are going out for the draft, with the draft consultation document for the long-term plan. As the report says, there's around about $93 million worth of capital expenditure projects budgeted for over the 10 years of the draft LTP. And when we modelled the funding of that 93 million, it showed that by year 6 of the draft LTP, that we would be right up there on our debt limit, the limit that we just spoke about previously, which it's not really a good position to be in, because it also means that we wouldn't have any further borrowing capacity, and it also, that the financial strategy that we've been working on together, it sort of goes against some of the principles of that strategy as well. So we needed to look at alternative ways of funding. And so what this report is bringing to you is some alternatives. It's also, I think that we need to recognise that for the work that's needed to protect the original pieces of work that are needed to protect the coastline, is that it needs to be a shared funding. There is, as my report says, there is a local benefit. There's also a district benefit and a regional benefit to protecting our coastline, and having the funding splits that are suggested in this report as a preferred option, we think is a reasonable assumption to have around the funding. I guess the caveat to that is with the option that I'm looking at as a preferred option is a 60% external funding is not secured, like we haven't gone out and sought that funding. We are sending the signal to the Crown, I guess, and to central government that we, as a district, it's not affordable for us to fund the whole lot. We're going to need some help to do that. In doing that, Audit New Zealand would probably not look very favourably on that in the long-term plan, because part of the work that they do is to giving assurance that what the projects that we've got in the long-term plan, we have the funding for it and can fund it. So it's likely that we'll get some sort of a tag on our opinion for this funding.
Thank you, Donna. Peter, please, and then Terry, and then Gary, please. Gary, sorry, do you mind just turning off your mic just until we get to you? That saves the... So, Peter, please.
Thanks for that explanation about Audit New Zealand. If they do qualify their audit in that way, what actually is the implication, or what is the downside, or what is the impact on us if they do, say, spit the dummy on that?
Through the chair, there's actually very little impact other than it's noted that we have a tag on our opinion, a qualification or an emphasis of matter, which if you remember we've had in the last several years around Three Waters, because there was so much uncertainty around that. So we have had all councils have had that tag. So there's actually, other than the fact that it is reported through to Parliament, that we will have a qualification, and what the qualification is about, there's really not any other issues with that.
So it doesn't impact upon the reputation of the council, the reputation of the staff in any way?
From an accountant's perspective, nobody likes to get a qualification on their opinion. But really, I think like with this, it's an assumption that we need to make. And also I think if we were to not have these projects in our long-term plan, I think we would be more remiss doing that, because we've had the shoreline management pathways work done. We know where the vulnerabilities on our coastline are. We know what's coming, and by just ignoring it for the next 10 years, not having it in a plan is actually, that's not showing good stewardship of our assets. It's also not actually meeting our obligations to our community under the Local Government Act anyway. So it's a bit of a catch-22 situation, and I think that accepting a qualification under these circumstances is not necessarily a bad thing.
So does this then need to be referred to the Risk and Assurance Committee as a risk that we need to be managing?
Yes, it has, and I hope we've also already highlighted it to Audit New Zealand as well, that it's likely that this is what we will be doing. So they're well aware.
Thank you, Donna.
Thank you, Donna.
So Reka and then Gary, please.
So from memory, this is one of the big 5 questions we have in our LTP consultation. Yes. So no,
it's not.
It's referenced. Yeah, that's not.
No.
Right.
Through the chair, sorry to repeat just for those online, it's not one of the specific issues for consultation, but we have raised it as one of our big issues along with our roading resilience. I expect that we will get feedback on it, even though we're not asking specifically for that feedback.
and that's my point, that we potentially will get some feedback. And if we accept or adopt this now and we get some feedback in a couple of months' time, do we have wiggle room to change things?
Yes, you do, because
it's a very technical financial term.
So it is. So what you're being asked to do today is to adopt it for the draft, for the consultation. So you have after consultation and submissions, and you hear the submissions and you have the deliberations, you can then go, you can change it. It's we basically need to have a position to go out to consult with. We can't go out and consult with projects that have got no funding. We need to actually we need to have that in there. So this decision that you're making today is basically so that we can put the budgets in correctly, so we can go and consult on the projects within the long-term plan. Yeah.
Thank you, Donna. Gary, and then Terry, and then Delhi, please.
Thank you. A couple of questions, if I may. The 60-40% funding model, while we agree, is there some, and I may alien this question here, is there something from government saying this is the right level of? How did you come to that number?
Well, a couple of different ways that intersected happily. So firstly, Donna looked at the financials and had a look at, well, what would it need to be for it to actually work? And at the same time, government also has a long-standing principle of a 60-40 split when it comes to fixing underground infrastructure.
So there's a precedent already set. Whether that continues to exist is another question, but there's a long-standing principle of a 60-40 split between national funding and local funding.
Right.
Well, when I say local, I mean district funding for events.
Thank you. Thank you. The other couple of quick questions also. 93 million today is what we're talking about, a number. In 6 years' time, it won't be 93. It'll be something else, won't it? And I just wonder about our stretching our limits, and we're talking about expanding out, you know, a more funding model to get this money in the future. But it's my understanding that if you're going to put a protection wall around a town, to find out who's benefited or not, how far back do you go? Is it 1 house, 2 houses, 3 houses, 4 houses? Is there any discussion about how that will be managed?
So through the chair, that's a technical question that I can't answer, and it's something that will come with the projects. Like the projects are very, very early stages. There's a lot of planning and a lot of work to be done around that. Even from the funding side of it, what the decision that we're asking for today is just to get it into the draft LTP, into the budgets to go out for consultation, and even after that. With a project of this size, the Local Government Act says that the project should have its own funding needs analysis done before you go out. So part of the planning for these specific projects will be having another look at this and doing a funding needs analysis, which will have a whole lot of work done around who benefits, and who should pay.
Thank you. That's what my next question was, so you've answered it. Thank you.
Thank you, Terry. Gary and then Delhi, please.
So are you proposing that only one option will go out?
So for budgeting purposes, we have to have an option, you know, so to budget for the long-term plan, we have to have one option in there. So that is the option that we are proposing as the most reasonable option to go out on the draft plan with.
Okay, so if I look at it, option one has an appeal to me, and one of the advantages is we need to wait until we see answers to Dennis Teague's question about coastal, because there's still so many question marks about what's being proposed, and so that's one I think people need to have knowledge of. And option three, it really has to get back, I think, to people that have bought properties in risk areas, and as far as I think most ratepayers would agree, their risk, they pay for it. And I think we need to have people to know that these alternatives, because insurance companies, as John well knows, going like, hey mate, you built this place here, dumb place, we don't want to insure you, and that sort of thing is going on. And you know, we can't be funding others, because certainly I know ratepayers I talk to going like, hey, why has that person built that place there? It was reclaimed land, it was never going to succeed. How the hell did they get a building permit? They may be coming back at us for giving a building permit. So I just am hesitating very much indeed with this. We really don't know what's happening with this coastal stuff, and the science is still out there looking at it. Yeah, that might 2 pence worth.
Thank you. Maybe Aileen, and then we'll go to Delhi, please.
Yeah, sorry, at the risk of going down a rabbit hole, I guess there's never enough science, and the science is always going to be unfolding, and that's why it's really important that we sort of start pointing in a direction. Even though there's a whole load of unanswered questions, we have subsequent processes, and I think Councillor Gottlieb's just outlined some of the challenges around how to fund these types of proposals longer term, and we've got subsequent processes where we'll have to consider those things. And Donna, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think this is rating review material in a subsequent process.
It is, but it's also, as I said, it's also a funding needs analysis needs to be done for each project.
Yeah, so at this point in time, I guess what we're putting into the LTP is a direction of travel with basically a placeholder
so that we can start pointing in the right direction and start taking the steps towards that. But there's certainly a lot of water to flow under the bridge or past the seawall in the years ahead.
Collective groan, please. Thank you, Aileen. Delhi, please.
So Councillor Gottlieb actually stated some of my thoughts as well. I agree with you, and I really appreciate the advantages, disadvantages tables that you provide with the different options. One thing that would be really helpful for me is in the recommendations where, like recommendation 3.2 approves the combined funding model. Would it be possible, we often have option 1 written there in brackets and then a description of what it is, so that when I'm flicking, you know, if you're on your screen and you're flicking between options and things, but you're looking at the resolutions that you're voting on, it's quite helpful to have the title of that. It's a little thing, but it just makes life a little bit easier. Cheers.
Thank you. Robin, please, and then Martin.
I really just wanted to push it back strongly against adopting option 1, and I think that we really need to keep this up in front of everybody's minds, and as Aileen said, set the direction of travel for this. You know, the Shoreline Management Pathways project was, you know, a really long project that was adopted by council last term, and we have a community expectation that we're going to do something now that we have this information. And can I just remind everybody that that Shoreline Management Pathways project is a multi-award winning project, and so I'm really absolutely happy, bless you, to support the option as it is in the recommendations, that we go for external funding and loan funding, but that we keep it in. It needs to be at the forefront. And some of the questions, absolutely, Gary, we don't know all the answers just yet, and science is an evolving thing. That's why science is quite exciting. So that's my piece.
Thank you. Martin?
Yes, just agreeing with what Councillor Sinclair said. And I guess looking at option 5 at the top of page 164, and that disadvantages, it's got the difficult to determine properties that receive a direct benefit. And we're also talking about like local, district, regional or national benefits, but also talking about individual ratepayers having direct and indirect benefit. And the thing that worries me quite a bit is that the peninsula is its separate little thing. If you've got a piece of the state highway that might have fibre and power and water and all sorts of other things running alongside it, heading down, up and down the country, then that will always be very high up on a list. It worries me that the Coromandel Peninsula, because it's a loop with a whole lot of little branching bits off, that some of those smaller but vital roads for those little bits will be quite a way down the national or regional benefit list. So yeah, I don't know how to solve that, but yeah, I would support option 5 because we have to look at all different sorts of funding options.
Thank you, Martin. So just bringing this back to the core of what we're trying to decide on here, we're really opening the door in terms of the consultation document to saying we're going to look for 60% external funding. Council's going to be putting their hand up for 40% as a preferred option, because if we don't go with that option, then essentially it all comes back on our ratepayers' shoulders, and that's going to be a tough pill to swallow. So really we're saying option 5, look for 60%. Is that what we're happy to put through into the consultation document? And that seems to be the logical way to go. So, Rebecca?
And I guess this builds on from what Delhi was saying earlier. Do we specifically need to include option 5 in the recommendation, in the resolution?
In terms of lining it up with
the actual wording of option 5?
It's probably not a bad idea, just to make it really clear that that's... Well, can we do that?
Through the chair, we've done that.
Okay.
Thank you.
We've put approves option 5 and then a dash and then what that is. So the combination of the funding source.
Perfect. Thank you.
Len, I'm happy to move all 3.
Thank you. Okay, we can mover and a seconder. All those in favour?
Aye.
Those against? Gary. Gary. Thank you. Yep. Okay. Thank you. Councillor Gottlieb. Are we getting spammed, are we? Okay. All right. Should we be concerned that you're checking your Facebook in the middle when we're trying? No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding, Gary. I'm just kidding. All right, thank you. We're going to go. Yes, I'm just winding you up, Councillor Gottlieb. Right, we're going to go to item 2.4, the district plan operative in part. Bruce, kia ora, welcome. It's only taken, what, 10 years to get us to this point? Is it 10 years? No, maybe not quite that long. Yeah. Okay. So we'll hand it over to you. Bruce, are you driving this?
Thank you, Your Worship. The reports are really a combination of my drafting and Leslie's checking, and together we put together this report for council. But the district plan, it's one of council's main policy documents and manages land use and subdivision in the district. The report recommends that the proposed district plan becomes operative in part. The plan provisions are currently treated as operative where they are not subject to an appeal or where an appeal has been settled. So large parts of the district plan are currently treated as operative. The report includes an appendix outlining the chronology of the actions that have taken place to get to this stage. And the district plan, once it becomes operative, really the only change is to the frontispiece of the plan, whereas at the moment it's stated that it's a proposed district plan. If council accepts my recommendation, the recommendation in my report, then it becomes the Thames-Coromandel district plan operative in part, effectively meaning that private plan changes can be lodged, whereas currently with the proposed plan, it's only council that can initiate a plan change. As far as the work for our consent plans goes, there is no change for them. They deal with the plan provisions as they are, and as I said before, most of them are currently treated as operative. Very few provisions are still subject to the 6 remaining appeals that we're looking to settle.
Thank you, Bruce.
I'm happy to take the report as read. And
Leslie, anything to add to that before we go to discussion?
Nothing from me, except it's been a long road. Number of very hard fought appeals.
I haven't found it all that onerous at all, to be honest.
Neither have I. I've been here long enough.
Thank you. Thank you for the work that's gone into this. We'll go Terry and then Martin, please.
Yeah, thank you, Bruce. Thanks, Leslie. Yeah, it's been a journey and a half. With the government's move to take away or change SNAs, will that have an effect, what's happening on the district plan? Because a lot of these concerns were around SNAs at the time. Have you got a comment?
There are 5 appellants who have an appeal point that relate to the identification of SNAs within production and forestry, and those that biodiversity provision has not been settled yet. That is the only unsettled part of SNAs. There is also, through the settlement of the biodiversity appeals, Appendix 6, which is a schedule of urban environment allotments with potential SNAs, which that was a desktop exercise undertaken to identify potential SNAs within urban allotments. And that's in a schedule in the district plan, and where someone's doing some work clearing indigenous vegetation, if it's within an area identified as a potential SNA, they need a resource consent.
Right. That's a very technical answer.
So, sorry, councillor Walker, I know this was subject, part of the discussion on Sunday. I'm hesitant to go too far down rabbit holes in this discussion because it's a big, complex topic with a lot of law changes ahead of us. Aileen.
I can probably answer it quite simply, I think, in that any changes ahead, we don't know what effect they'll have. They may have no effect until the plan goes through its next iteration of change, or they could direct that the plan do X, Y, and Z.
Right.
We don't know that yet. Okay. And I think it'll be some time before we know that, and some time before that's given effect to.
Right, it's down the track.
And really that's goes back to my concern about heading too far down rabbit holes when there's so much we don't know and so many changes ahead of us. So, Martin, please. Oh, and then Delhi.
So at the risk of sounding flippant, and this is needs to be reviewed every 10 years, presumably once we adopt this, or if we adopt this in part, or operative in part, then there's already a list of things that we're going to put into the next review.
That's always a discussion that we're having with the consent plans about what needs to be reviewed. But bearing in mind that the appeals have been settled since 2016 when decisions came out. And I mentioned the biodiversity appeals, that consent order was settled in 2020. So it's only 2030 when you have to really look at biodiversity provisions again, unless you want to do so beforehand and have the cost to do so.
Aileen, did you have?
Yeah, so by making this operative, it starts the 10-year clock ticking. However, because we're a good territorial authority, we know we've got gaps in the plan and we may advance plan changes earlier because of those holes, not because we're being driven by the 10-year review provision.
Right, okay.
Leslie and then Delhi, please.
Sorry, and I was just going to add, we've already indicated where we need some plan changes, you know, for example, to implement the spatial plan for Thames.
Thank you. Delhi?
So I have a concern around 4.5.2, which is the proposed variation lodged for the Kuatunu Dark Sky Management Area, which is currently being assessed by policy staff. But if this plan becomes operative in part, it then becomes a private plan change. And I assume with that, there's a hefty cost. So my concern is that we won't be able to get it through without a community group having to stump up quite a few $1,000s to do that. Am I correct?
That variation was lodged with council on the 21st of December last year. I've had a good read of that variation and have requested further information on that variation as I've assessed it, and I've sent that information request to the consultants. They're in the process of addressing that request. If council makes the plan operative in part, then that then becomes a plan change and will be processed as a plan change. A plan change, when it's reported to council, can be under the first schedule adopted by council and become its own plan change. It can be accepted by council and remain a private plan change where it's funded by the initiator. It can be rejected, or you can tell them to apply for a resource consent, which is probably not likely in this case. So what I'm saying is that another report, once we get the further information back, will need to come to council where council then makes a decision on whether to accept it or adopt the plan change.
So does that become, if we accept it after making this operative in part, we can accept it without forcing them to go through a private plan change and pay for that. So we can do that, Brian.
If council,
Brian's hovering.
You've got a hovering Brian.
if council chooses to adopt that private plan change, it becomes council's plan change, and council funds the plan change. If council accepts the private plan change, generally the initiator of that plan change pays the costs. In this case, we've already had a cover letter asking for council to waive the fee deposit, which has not yet been addressed because I haven't put the proposal to council, but that will come in due course for council to make a decision on the funding of that plan change, whether it remains with the proponent and is accepted, or whether it becomes a plan change that is adopted by council and council pays the cost of it.
So if we pass these resolutions today, that pathway is still open for that to happen.
That's correct.
Brian, did you want to say something?
I do at the end, but no, Bruce has answered that. This doesn't limit that decision being made in the future.
Okay, awesome.
Are you happy with that?
I am happy with that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes, no?
Thanks, Bruce.
Okay. No further discussion. I'll ask for a mover and a seconder, and we'll put the resolution as a block 1 through 6, please. So can I get a mover and a seconder? Councillor Morrissey, Councillor Rodley seconding. Items 1 through 6. All those in favour?
Aye.
Those against? That is carried. Thank you.
Your Worship, before Bruce vacates the seat, I'd just like to take a minute to acknowledge Bruce. He's recently put in his retirement resignation to us. He's been generous enough to see out till April. There's a few things we want to tidy up. Bruce has been with us for 26 years and 11 months in total. He did leave for a bit in the middle. But for the last few years, he's held that district planning area by himself. So there's a lot of hard work that he's achieved. It's going to be probably take a couple of people to fill that experience. We've been recruiting to support Bruce for over 12 months with no real luck, but we've got some things in place. But I want to take some just that acknowledge Bruce and the time that he's put towards our district into this organisation for the last nearly 27 years. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Brian. And I would add to my thanks and congratulations on behalf of the council to you, Bruce. Very much appreciated. We hope to see you again before you depart in April, and hopefully that won't be the last we see of you. Thank you once again.
Thank you, Your Worship. Thank you, councillors.
Okay, how are we going for time? We've got item 2.5. Māori contribution to decision-making policy review. I will get myself in the right page. And Leslie, welcome again.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'll take the report as read. I think I brought this to you at a previous workshop where we discussed the policy and the fact that it actually isn't fit for purpose currently. But I think to develop a policy that's meaningful, we need to engage with iwi. And that's what I'm suggesting, that this policy does continue with the caveat that we will engage purposefully with iwi about its content.
So this is quite simply a reconfirmation of the existing policy and allows the the scope to go forward and do the next stage of the work. Have I got that right?
Commitment, isn't it?
Okay. Delhi, is that historical, that light on your?
Oh, it is.
So who have we got? Peter and then Martin, please.
Thank you. It seems to be a reasonably straightforward matter. I would like to see some sort of timeline or some time thing. I just have this perception that we are not great in engaging with iwi, and so something that sort of gives us a target for, we will have, you know, busted it out, done everything we can by whatever, some sort of date. So I don't know what that would be, but that's what I would request in that resolution.
Thank you, Councillor. Martin?
So just from a governance and organisation and best practice point of view, is it okay to re-endorse or reconfirm policy that has been said that is not fit for purpose? Or can we put something in there saying, reconfirm it, noting that it's not fit for purpose and that a review, as Councillor Revel said, will take place within the next X number of months? Is it okay to?
I think that's quite, it's flagged in the report that that is the status.
Complicated answer. Firstly, it's non-statutory. So we don't have to have this policy. What we have to do is a bunch of things sitting in the Local Government Act, and there's a bunch of ways of doing that that may not include a policy. And is it fit for, depends what its purpose is it fit for purpose? I think the view I took, there's nothing we can't do. It doesn't constrain us. What it probably doesn't do is proactively describe what we want to do, if you follow. So, yeah, not fit for purpose is quite strong. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
So,
yeah,
John, thank you.
Yeah, I think we can always do better, but I myself don't want to see any time frame put on it for staff. I think the staff have got are well aware of what their priorities are. This is being deemed to be non-statutory, and I'm happy to leave it in the hands of the CEO and staff to address. They are well aware it's there, and I'm sure they will.
Thank you. The only comment that I would make is that along the pathway that we've been following in the last 18 months since we were all elected, there has been quite an enormous amount of work done on establishing goodwill and good faith with our iwi partners, establishing those relationships, maybe mending some fences along the way of relationships that either weren't there in the past or needed extra work put on them. There's nothing stopping us doing that. There's nothing stopping us continuing those engagements, and it's certainly something that I'm committed to, and I know the rest of you are as well. So whatever you've got in writing or in as part of a policy is just part of what we're doing as good practice as councillors anyway.
Actually, and I'm happy to move it, Len, as it is.
Thank you. All right. No further discussion? Okay, we have a mover and a seconder. All those in favour? Aye. Those against? Thank you. Carried. Okay. Temporary alcohol ban for Beach Hop 2024 and Taste of Matarangi. This is. Do you need to run off to the volunteer fire? Lorna, welcome. They're alcohol ban maps. They're not flooding maps. There's not alcohol flooding. Hello, Kirsten. Welcome. Hello, Lorna. Welcome. Okay. This is fairly standard, straightforward stuff that we do every year. Anything to add to the report, or shall we just move through? Oh, okay.
No, there's nothing to add to the report, Len. Just wanted to let you know that in the past we haven't included any mapping for the reports, and it did cause a bit of confusion with the people who have to enforce the liquor ban. So the police had requested we add some maps, so our GIS people did some maps for the to go along with the report this year to give everybody a clear understanding of the areas that are covered.
Okay, thank you, Kirsten. And the maps are on the are in the report, which is good. That's helpful. Rika?
I have a quick question. And do these folks have to come back every year and apply for these bans, or is it something that they could apply for sort of for a 3 to 5 year block for their event?
No, they don't apply. It's something that council has to do. Because Brian Taylor, I can see you in the background there. Can you just explain why we have to do this?
Yeah, through you, Your Worship. We made a decision when we made this bylaw in 2018 that it was better to do it specifically to the events when the events were coming up, so we could get things like the dates right. The previous bylaw had something like beach hop in it, but it was really unclear what the dates were because they change every year. And so one of the key principles in the bylaw and in the Act is making sure that the public are accurately informed of the ban. So I think the best thing to do would still be every year. We have to give 7 days notice publicly of when the ban applies. So I think the current approach is probably working. It allows us to put the public notice out before the event and then place the signage up so that the public are aware. It does obviously come with an infringement, so we want to make sure that people are really aware of what they can and can't do during that time.
Okay, thank you. That helps.
Okay. Councillor Morrissey.
No, I'm just going to move it, Len. Thank you, Kirsten. Sterling report, good with the mapping. Great work as always. I'm happy to move it as it is.
I'm happy to second.
Seconder.
Through the chair, we just would like to note one amendment, and that is to clause 2, because currently what it's showing is the 25th of March 2023, so it should be 24.
I'm happy with that amendment.
Thank you.
I'll second that.
Martin, did you have
Yeah.
discussion?
I know that last when there was a review or debrief, I guess, after the last one, the figure of, and I forget if it was 10 or 20 or 30 either arrests for drunk and disorderly or for people who were driving while under the influence. And I guess it just kind of seems to me that we are saying, hey, have this event. It encourages people to turn up in cars. There is a presence of alcohol, and it does concern me that we just kind of accept the fact that we're going to have a beach hop. Yes, it brings people in, but we also are going to have 10, 20, 30 people that potentially are going to get into their cars and drive drunk or walk around the streets drunk, and that doesn't sit well with me. I support the temporary alcohol ban, but I just wonder if it needs a conversation at some point about what sort of events we are supporting. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Rodley. What sort of numbers do we get for beach hop? 120,000?
Yes, 100,000 estimated per year.
So I guess the discussion would need to include where does that sit in the balance of what we would normally get with 100,000 people? Is it in line or is it out of proportion or so?
To be fair, I've seen people inebriated at a Sunday school picnic.
How do we get invited to those picnics? We digress. All right, we have a mover and a second. I'm going to put the motion subject to that amendment from in line 2, 2024. All those in favour? Aye. Those against? Thank you. Much appreciated. How are we going for time? I think we're doing good. We're doing good. Grants policy. Item 2.7. We've got Dean, we've got Lorna. Welcome Lorna, welcome Dean. We are. We're cracking along. Okay, so I'll hand it over to, who's driving this? You, Dean, or you, Lorna? Dean, all right. So just to recap for councillors, the proposal is that we receive the grants policy, that we approve option 2, which is prepare a new grants policy to be named community grants policy, on the basis that we've clearly identified that there's some messy stuff in there that's not working. It needs to be reviewed, and we give you time to go away and prepare a new grants policy which is fit for purpose. Have I got that right?
Yeah, through the chair, that was pretty much the summary I was going to give.
Okay. And so having said that, I would probably suggest to councillors, we don't probably want to get too much into the detail, because this is about giving you the go ahead to go away, do work and come back, bring us something back that we can get our teeth into. Is that fair? So before we go to questions, I'll just ask Dean if there's anything you need to add to the report. Otherwise, we'll open it for discussion.
No, the only thing I would say is obviously we bought a paper in December. This is very much just a housekeeping step to follow on from that. But essentially the comments that you've outlined are true and correct. In staff's view, it'll be very much easier to start again with a completely fresh and new policy.
Thank you, Dean. Lorna, anything to add?
Just around the just around stakeholder engagement. So that will take some time. We've got to talk to, a whole bunch of different people who are already getting some form of grant. We need to get input from the community boards, and we also need to get feedback from the wider public as well.
Thank you. So we'll go Delhi, and then John, did you have your hand up? Delhi.
So when you develop that new policy in guidelines, is there an opportunity, for example, to look at how much is put into the, to quantify sums as well? And the other thing is those partnerships fall under this as well, don't they? So, for example, Destination Thames-Coromandel, we would be able to have a conversation about level of funding and those sorts of things as well.
So through the chair, this Destination Thames-Coromandel, there's a review underway separately, and we've taken that away and doing that completely and separately, so that it just doesn't convolute the process with everything else. So that is coming to council for further feedback on a review of DHC. Yeah.
Thank you. John? No? Martin and then Terry, please.
Yeah, I think a review of the whole grants thing is definitely warranted, and I know even the last year or so that we've had it appears different ways of allocating this community board's discretionary grant, with some areas doing it one way and other community boards doing it different ways. I guess my sort of thing with the categories of grants, the category number 2 with the Natural and Cultural Heritage Fund, I guess I'd like the review to try to factor in the fact that lots of the heritage, as in buildings, there's a real, west-east split as far as old buildings, and so I guess I'd still kind of like that to be district rather than falling on the local wards that have those historic buildings. But yes, I'd just ask that some attention is paid to that. I realise it's also cultural heritage as well as buildings, so sites of significance for European and iwi, but I'd ask for some consideration as to how that might be decided. Thank you.
Thank you. Terry and then Robin, please.
Yes, welcome and thanks for the report. I support the looking at the policy as well, but it's one of the key drivers at the moment for our community board is their engagement with community through the community grants. With 100 clubs in town, there's a whole lot of interest about supporting those in some way if they can, and they only get to about half the menu rate. So I support the review, and I'm really pleased to see there'll be lots of engagement. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Walker. Robin?
You know, I think I've banged on about this for a couple of years now. I've been looking for a bit more consistency in the grants policy, so I welcome this with open arms and I'm very happy to move it. Just one comment, Dean, you mentioned talking about those rolling over grants and the partnership grants. I think as well as talking to the people who currently receive those, I've been approached by a number of people who'd also quite like to be in line to receive those. So I'd be very happy to pass those along to you, but I think that we should consult as widely as possible on those, as widely as we are able to.
So if you're saying that there's an opportunity for this to be more comprehensive than it has been with what might be perceived as a fairly narrow historical range of groups, that it needs to be a bit more comprehensive.
I'm suggesting that we ask for the opinions of more than the people who just received the grants currently.
Yeah, okay. All right. I think that's been received loud and clear. Yep.
Okay. Yep. Through the chair, certainly when we open out to the stakeholders and do the workshops with the community boards and also with council, at that point we'll be looking at all of the potential stakeholders and probably trying to find the new ones that you're aware of, rather than just looking at what we have traditionally done.
I welcome that. Thank you, Dean.
Thank you. Peter?
Yeah, thanks for the report, and I too am totally supportive of a review of the grants policy. Could you just refresh me on what the timeline is?
Yep, through the chair, there's you'll see at the back of the report, we've proposed a timeline that includes going out to the community boards just after the LTP closes and then to the council a month after that. So we'd be looking at engaging through sort of October, November period, and then bringing a decision to the council probably in February or March on the final policy. So that's the sort of time frame. There was a discussion as to whether to try and speed that up, but the engagement with the boards and the council would then fall at the same time as the LTP. And so staff have recommended that we just push it out so that there's not that conflict in the schedule.
So when we come to looking at grants in 24-25, it'll all be under the old policy and it'd be what we're currently doing.
Yeah, so for the next LTP period, we've made the decision in December to roll over what we have been doing. So for that period, without a change in the annual plan, it would stay with what we have been doing, but we would be in a position during the engagement and then definitely in February to be able to indicate to those recipients of the change that's coming, therefore giving them a couple of years to prepare for whatever decision we've taken on the new policy for the next LTP.
Can I just add to that as well? What we did discuss and got feedback on is that, because, sorry, don't mind, is we do have under the proposed LTP a quantum of money already. We are going to all of the current stakeholders to talk to them about their KPIs and their contract and their budgets and whether they, whether they actually need funding or not. So there is potential for some organisations who may not need funding anymore to be withdrawn and new ones to come in the next 12 months as well.
Thank you, both of you.
Thank you. Okay, further discussion? Happy to. So Councillor Sinclair has moved it. You happy to second, Councillor Walker? All those in favour? Aye. Those against? That's carried. Thank you. Thank you, Lorna. Thank you, Dean. Okay. Mr. Towler.
Are you not Sir Teller yet?
Sir Gareth.
Thank you, Worship. In the December workshop, I came and discussed with you all regarding the issues we were having with WHISPIR, and that the operational side of the Emergency Management Unit didn't wish to continue with it. The councillors present asked for a report to be presented for council to consider, so I present this report as requested. So I'll take any questions.
Thank you. Delhi, please.
Just a question about option 1 on the report, and it says support the use of the WHISPIR app, and then summary of options, support to formally withdraw from the WHISPIR project. I don't understand that. So it's saying supporting the WHISPIR app, but then removing from the WHISPIR project.
So the WHISPIR platform as an app is very, very successful. It's what we are trying to do with it as a subscription process for all mobile phone devices and landlines that we wish to withdraw from. The WHISPIR program, we have an internal one with our staff that staff have all signed up to. Not all of them, but most of them, that is still operating functionally and really well because it's all on mobile. It's just that clunkiness around the landline issue that we just don't want to proceed with because it's just not, it's not bulletproof enough for us.
Thank you, Gary. Councillor Grant, please.
Thanks very much, Gary. Couple of questions around this. So what was the intent of WHISPIR? What was it set out to try and achieve? I think there was probably multiple purposes of what you're describing.
Through the chair. So as in the front end of my report, we were having a go at this internal alerting device, which ultimately ended up not proceeding with it. WHISPIR was quite new at that time as well as a national development app, and we decided that it was worthwhile our council having a go at that. So we were just looking around for another option to replace the indoor alerting device project. And,
so the objective was to be able to get messages out to a wide group of people, and that now, from reading the report, will be replaced by the cell phone alerting service.
So the EMA, the national EMA, is a WHISPIR app platform, effectively. So it has superseded what we were looking to do as a council. Yes.
How far down the track did we actually get with trying to roll this out into the subscription service to?
How far? So we went as far as testing it with our community stakeholders. There were some councillors, I think, were involved, and a number of staff it was tested with. So off the top of my head, I think we probably did about 7 tests in which we got members of the community and staff and say, right, have a go at this.
Okay. So thinking just back to Gabriel and what occurred, what if WHISPIR had been working correctly, what would it have been doing during Gabriel?
As a subscription platform, it would have added another level of alerting to the emergency mobile alert that we sent out. So we would have sent our own WHISPIR alert out as well to ensure that we got the landlines.
So just alerting rather than information or updates?
It was an alert with a message, the same as the EMA. So when we send out the EMA, we give instructions as to what the emergency is and what to do.
Right. So the final question, how much have we invested roughly into the WHISPIR platform?
Staff time only. There's been no monetary. It's been covered by our group office the whole way through. And they're still working on it, and we can still work on it if it's the council's decision. It's just that it's clunky, and I'm just not satisfied that I can put my hand on my heart and say it's going to work 100%.
So our reliance going forward is now, from an alerting point of view, is solely with the NEMA national alerting cell phone system.
And that is developing all the time as you well know, we can actually send our own alert out through that EMA as well. So that's the technology, and that is improving all the time, as is the cell phone coverage. So yes, we have confidence that that will be the go-to tool from here on in.
Thank you. We have questions from Martin and from Terry, please.
So just wanted to check, Gary, so when this says to withdraw from the WHISPIR project, would it actually make sense to say withdraw from the WHISPIR project about adding the landline and answer phone message thing? Because I think what you're saying is WHISPIR is still used as the backbone of the current alerting. Is that correct?
So we can amend the resolution if you would like it that way. It's just that we set up a project specific for Thames-Coromandel District Council because we wanted to try this landline capability and subscription process. So that's the project we wish to withdraw from. WHISPIR is here to stay as a national device anyway. So
yeah. I guess my thing is with resolution 2 saying withdraw from the WHISPIR project. That to me is like people are going to go, oh, so you're not doing that thing anymore. So maybe saying that we don't want to pursue the landline and answer phone thing might make it clearer.
Okay, I'll work with. Okay, I'll tidy that up, Councillor.
Is that something we need to do now? Just that it's a very simple amendment. Yeah. So let's do that now.
Can I?
Sure we've got that clear. Terry.
Yeah. Gary. Yeah. So just really listening to that, I've been around through the discussions with the internal device and this one. With these little 10 units you put around the Coromandel, are they going to use Starlink as their connection, or is they going to use the emergency platforms?
They're totally separate. So Starlink is a communications tool that the communities will have access to should they lose their own, should we lose cell coverage or whatever. So that is a separate communication.
Right. So you got the national one coming through, and then the Starlink is that a connection for the communities who, say, lose connection can use the Starlink method as a connection model.
Yeah.
And you see that superseding what's happening here with this WHISPIR program. We see WHISPIR sitting inside the back of it.
They are different tools.
Different tools.
Totally different tools. One's a satellite communication system, and the other one is like WHISPIR as a intrusive alerting system to mobile phones.
Right. So will the council won't be using WHISPIR out with the communities, though, will they?
Yes, we will be.
You will be?
If we have to send out an alert, we'll be using the WHISPIR tool, yes.
Right.
But that'll be going to mobile phones only, not the landlines.
But that's the national WHISPIR, not the TCDC
not in the national WHISPIR, not the
project.
Right.
But what we need to understand is that we can geofence we can geofence the national alert to the eastern side of the Coromandel or this side. It can be geofenced. It is that advanced now as it was when we first started the project 18 months ago.
Right.
So, Gary, can I just clarify two things? First of all, the major problem with our local project was landlines, which seem to be a dying breed now, aren't they? They're on the way out. And Chorus, I think, have already flagged that they're not going to be investing anymore in copper, and landlines are disappearing. Second thing is that Starlink, my understanding is, provides an option for people to be able to connect with emergency services and family and friends in a time when all other connectivity is gone. And that was the issue that we had during the cyclones, wasn't it? The cell phone towers were down, connectivity was down, landlines were down. They had no way of actually calling 111 and saying, hey, we're in trouble. Starlink provides an option for them to be able to do that because it's satellite connectivity and not cell phone tower. Have I got that right?
That's correct.
Thank you. Repco.
Hi, Gary. Just quickly, you're talking about geofencing. So if I was not a resident of, let's say, the eastern side of the peninsula, but I was visiting and I was in there, is that how it works? It pings my phone's location and tells me that you're in an area that's potentially got some...
Yeah, that's great. It actually pings the cell phone towers that we require to get the message to.
Right, okay.
Thank you.
Sorry.
Yeah, so the flip side of that is, if I'm a property, the flip side to that is if I'm a property owner and a ratepayer and I happen to be down in Wellington, I won't know that.
No.
Right, I won't know that that's, okay, thank you.
Until your neighbour rings you and tells you you haven't got a house anymore.
It's interesting because I was doing a drive water sample run to Auckland and I got pinged with the flooding in Auckland City, which was great. So it told me where not to go and what areas of the city were underwater. Useful.
I think it's also important, and correct me if you disagree, that to understand the limitations of the Starlink. So Starlink would work well in a PITO for the person who has Starlink. The rest of the community or the people that are in more remote locations of a PITO would not have access to that unless they came to the point where Starlink is. So if you then apply that in a community like Pawanui, which was completely cut off during Gabriel for quite some time and lost cell phone as well as all power, they wouldn't have access to Starlink unless they had their own Starlink within those, and then they'd have to power that as well. Is that a fair assumption?
So through the chair, the kits that we are distributing throughout the district with Starlink, though, I mean, have you seen the size of the caches? You need a truck. It's massive, and it's got generators and it's got power packs in there. So what we are doing is providing via our community response groups, with which we have 32 of them, is those community response groups that are receiving Starlinks. Not everyone will receive them. Those groups are trained and they will be the centre point of that community to manage the Starlink process. So yeah, not everyone can come and tap in and get hold of mum. It is a controlled communication tool, ideally with us, because it'll be under a civil defence emergency. We'll be based in here, and this is where the communications will come to. It will go 111 and that sort of thing as well, but it is a managed communication tool. It is limited to that.
So to give you a little bit of feedback from the Tairua community, I was with there on Sunday. They've got their kit. They've had training in that. They're absolutely over the moon. They think it's fantastic because they were isolated, cut off. They had the option. Now that they've had training, they know how to work it. And they've got the option of being able to go and access that Starlink system in an emergency and get messages and communications out in an isolated situation. So they're thrilled to bits. Is there one in Pawanui separately, or is it just Tairua?
I'm not 100% sure about Pawanui. I know they are getting a kit, whether there's a Starlink in there, but I can double check. Okay. We would ideally love to give every community one, but they're hellishly expensive and you pay on a monthly basis for a subscription as well. So that's the pain. Money runs out sooner or later.
You can suspend that until you need it.
Good to know. Yeah. Okay. Any further discussion?
To make sure you're happy with it.
Okay. So revised resolution from the Council WHISPIR project. So withdraw from the Council WHISPIR project landline subscription. Continue to make use of the national led WHISPIR program. You happy with that, Gary? Yep. Okay. All right. Okay. Mover and seconder, please. Robin and Martin. All those in favour? Those against? Carried. Thank you for your contribution, folks. Thank you, Gary. Much appreciated. We are 7 minutes behind schedule, which I think is the best result that we've ever had as a council. I'm going to propose that we break for lunch. Any problems with that? Oh, and we are going to ask Aileen to introduce our newest employee, please.
Thank you. So Mel Connors is the new executive assistant for Len and myself, and she started yesterday, and you'll all be interacting with Mel. She may have some local government whakapapa. Yeah. So, and Mel's going to join us for lunch.
So Mel, this is the part where you say a few words and just introduce yourself and say how happy you are to be here. Not putting words in your mouth. But.
Kia ora. Yeah, I'm Melissa Connors, or Mel. I am from the area originally. I went to school here, grew up here. I've then been away. I've been up to Auckland. I've lived overseas. I've studied. I did a Bachelor of Creative Technologies at Auckland University of Technology, and then studied economics for events over in the Netherlands. I've come back. I've lived in Pauanui for 5 years, where I was a real estate agent there. I've then been overseas again during COVID times and came back, and most recently, the last 2.5 years, I've been a PA down at Cooper Aiken Accounting down there. Thank you.
Well, welcome.
Excited to be here.
And join us for lunch, please.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, let's adjourn. We'll come back at 1 o'clock, please.